Hello, everybody. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? So yeah, Merry Christmas or Christmas Eve. That's around the time I'm recording this, so I feel it's appropriate to say that. Anyway, I'm a bit sick, so I'm going to sound like absolute crap. Probably the entire video, but we're still going to enjoy this, just because I do. So yeah, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad. Hopefully, y'all have a good time. That being said, this is going to be 2 parts that I'll try to do today. I still got flu, so I'm like really slow. My brain's melting. I'm trying to sweat it out. It's hard. That being said, without further ado, we are here to listen to something dark, strange, and mysterious delivered in story format by the one, the only, MrBallen. MrBallen. That's not the title. This hospital has a disturbing secret. That's funny. I was just in a hospital like on Saturday. Anyway, y'all ready? I'm ready. And, oh yeah, by the way, gently pat your alcoholism on the back and congratulate them on making so many friends during the holidays. That being said, let's go.
In 2015, a startling discovery was made inside of this off-limits area inside of a prominent South African hospital. Now, at the time, no one really understood what this discovery meant, and so eventually people just kind of forgot about it and moved on. Until 2 years later, when another eerily similar discovery was made inside of another prominent South African hospital in one of their off-limits areas. I can't believe this story has not gotten more press because 1, it's recent, and 2, the implications of these discoveries are mind-boggling. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, please put coyote urine in the like button's apple juice. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. On October
Gotta love MrBallen's intro. It sounds so quiet to me. It sounds so quiet, and I don't know why. Being sick sucks. Freaking hate it. Why is it? Whatever, let's keep going. Apologies. It's hard for me to hear it, and I don't know why. The volume's all the way up and everything, so I don't understand.
October 4th, 2017, a 61-year-old father of 6 named Tatike Kotsai arrived at a hospital in Stellenbosch, which is one of the richest towns in South Africa. Tatike, who lived in the area with his family, had been dealing with some stomach issues over the last several months, and so this day he was finally going in to have abdominal surgery to hopefully alleviate those issues. So, after entering the building, Tatike was checked in, and then before long he was transferred to the operating room where surgeons got to work on him. After the surgery was over, Tatike was transferred to a recovery room in the hospital where he was scheduled to stay for at least a couple of days so the doctors and nurses could watch over him while he recovered and make sure there was no complications from the procedure. And so, on the afternoon of October 4th, Tatike just kind of lounged around inside of his recovery room. He couldn't really do anything because of the incisions on his stomach, and so he mostly just laid in his bed, he watched TV, he relaxed, he ate, and then at some point, some of his family members came into the hospital and they visited with him as well. By the end of that day, the day of his surgery, Tatike was definitely sore from the incisions, but overall, he was in good spirits, and to the medical staff, it seemed very likely that his surgery was a success. Early the next morning, at around 5:15 a.m., one of the nurses in the hospital went to Tatike's room to check on him. And when she went inside, Tatike was awake, he was alert, he seemed totally normal. And so after a brief conversation, the nurse told Tatike that she was just going to get him some fresh linens to make up his bed. And so Tatike nodded a thank you to her, and then the nurse, she turned away from Tatike, who's in his bed. She stepped out of the one door in the room into the hallway. She grabbed fresh linens off of a cart, and then she turned back around and went back into Tatike's room, except now Tatike was not in his bed. So the nurse immediately thought, okay, well then Tatike must have gone into his bathroom because the door was shut. He must be in the bathroom. And so just kind of reflexively, the nurse walked over to Tatike's now empty bed and replaced the linens. And then when she was done, she just looked at the bathroom door inside of his room, expecting Tatike to come outside any minute. But after a couple of minutes passed and Tatike had still not come out of the bathroom, the nurse decided to go over and just knock. And so she walked over, she knocked on the bathroom door and just kind of called out, hey, is everything okay in there? But there was no answer. And so the nurse eventually just tried the handle, and when she saw it was open, she called out that she was coming inside. She opened up the bathroom door, and it was empty. And so the nurse, she whipped her head around and looked back out at the room where Tatike should have been, and she saw, he's not on the bed, he's not under the bed, he's not anywhere in this room. Where could he have possibly gone? And she's thinking to herself, the only door out of this room is into the hallway, the same door that she had used to go out and get the linens. And if somehow Tatike had ran out of that door in the few seconds that her back was turned from Tatike, she certainly would have heard him or seen him. Because again, she was right outside the door and only outside of his room for a couple of seconds. Not to mention the fact, Tatike has major incisions on his stomach and could barely stand, let alone walk or run.
Did this man just jump out the window? Is that what happened here? Is that what happened? Because if you can't find him anywhere inside the room, and there's no way he got past her while her back was turned to the door, or past any of the staff that was, there, or past, I'm assuming, cameras. I'm assuming they have cameras there. If he didn't make it past any of that, there's only one other option I can think of. Well, there's a window. And now I'm thinking of that, I'm pretty sure it was Monty Python. I think it was Monty Python where the guy closes like a book on like a conference room table. He just gets up, walks over to a window, opens it up, and just walks out, just limps it out the window. Just limp fish. Whoop. I'm pretty sure that was a Monty Python one. But yeah, is that what happened? Oh shoot. That'd be sad, but funny at the same time. Just oh damn, people are not gonna like my sense of humor. Or at least some people won't. Or maybe people will understand it. I've faced my own mortality so many different times to where now, stuff like this can possibly be just hilarious to me. Oh, I'm so messed up. But yeah, I'm just imagining it. Like he for some reason, he just got up and just opened the window and just boop. But of course, you'd want to know why, right? You'd want to know why. So, of course, there's more to the story. Well, let's continue. That's my guess, though. That's my guess is the window. What's y'all's guess at this timestamp? Y'all let me know.
And so, totally baffled, this nurse ultimately left the room and went and told her superiors. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. In 2017, I left the military and pretty much right away, I fell apart. The military had provided a lot of structure in my life, and so suddenly not having that structure made me feel like I was lost. Pretty soon, I began resenting all the people around me just because they seemed happy and I wasn't. I sort of figured that these feelings of resentment and unhappiness would just kind of go away on their own, but they didn't. Eventually, with some encouragement from my family and my friends, I sought out a therapist. And quickly, my therapist diagnosed me with depression, something I really did not think I was. But after the shock of the diagnosis had worn off, me and my therapist were able to kind of go back in my life and figure out what was causing me to feel the way I was feeling, and before long, having that perspective really made me feel a lot better. Look, therapy is not for everyone, but it is a great starting point for people who just kind of feel lost and don't really know where to go.
Okay, so I'm gonna cut the advert in half. But yeah, doesn't hurt to try. It really doesn't. Majority of therapists I've come across, okay, so I went to multiple different therapists after my latest round of being divorced, because selfish reasons. Also, Western women things. Hashtag Western women things. But yeah, I went to therapy. Everybody said it was my fault. And I was like, well, okay. So please tell me how. I did what I was asked to do. I made wishes come true, quite literally, in both marriages. I made wishes come true. I was that good guy. I was the awesome guy. I was the Swiss Army knife of a husband and a human being. Yes, I had my ups and downs, but I'm more than made up for all of that. But every one of them tried to convince me that it was more on me than the other party. Yeah, that sounds like a very strong bias to me, honestly. But hey, I could be wrong. That's why I'm very averse to it personally. And maybe also because of my attitude towards things, or my consistent. I would say my consistent rebound is the things I say in most of my videos, right? Expect nothing, you'll never be disappointed. Whether it be people, places, things, whatever. Expect nothing, you'll never be disappointed. And acceptance is a big thing. Accept reality, change the things you can, forget the things you shouldn't or couldn't, right? If something is not within your ability to affect in some way, shape, or form to your benefit, it's not worth your time, attention, energy, or resources. Not in any way. And if it's not beneficial to you and yours, same thing applies. That's pretty much what I try to stick with. I try, though. But yeah, it doesn't hurt to try therapy. It really doesn't. Seriously, what's the worst that happens? You figure out that what these people are telling you is completely all wrong, but they do help you to kind of, eliminate some check marks on a list or something. The worst that happens is that you waste like a few hours of your time, attention, and energy to kind of get closer to figuring out how it is that you can accept the reality you live in and push past it. So yeah, I'm going to cut that advert just because YouTube doesn't like it when I play the entire advert. So let's get over here. Let's go.
This hospital would immediately begin looking for TK on the grounds of the hospital, but they would do it kind of quietly. They wouldn't call TK's family to tell them that, hey, we can't find him, nor would they call police. And some have speculated that either one, the hospital did not think this was an emergency and they would quickly find TK and that everything would be fine, or two, the hospital was just so embarrassed at the idea that they lost a patient, they didn't want anyone to know, and so that's why they didn't tell anyone. Regardless, the hospital would search for TK all day on the 5th, the day he went missing, and they wouldn't find him. And then the next day, the 6th, the hospital again would spend the entire day quietly searching everywhere in the hospital, but they wouldn't find him again. And so finally on the next day, the 7th, so 48 hours after Tatike had just kind of vanished inside of his room, the hospital would reach out to Tatike's family and they would say to them, "Hey, is Tatike home with you guys?" And the family was like, "No, he's supposed to be with you." And so the hospital would say, "Well, he left 2 days ago, so we don't know where he is." And so Tatike's family is horrified, not only that they were totally left in the dark, but they would find out over the course of this conversation that the hospital had not even contacted the police yet. And so the family, they reached out to the police, and then later that day, the family would meet the police at the Stellenbosch hospital, and then a very public search of the property would ensue to look for Tatike. However, again, no one could find him. Authorities would continue to search both the hospital and also the neighboring area outside of the hospital over the next couple of days, but after they continued to find absolutely nothing, the search began to wind down. And so Tatike's devastated family was left with absolutely no idea what to think or what to do. Fast forward to October 20th, so 15 days after Tatike had gone missing. And on this day, the 20th, there was a construction crew at this hospital in Stellenbosch doing some renovations.
Okay, so my guess was he went out of the window. Like Monty Python style. But if they searched the grounds, they would have found his body, I would think. So, however, he would have been in that room somewhere still. Right? So maybe I wonder if they have the same type of like roof system, like roofing access paneling that they do. Like a lot. I don't know how many of y'all have been to too many hospitals. I've been to so many during my lifetime. Just one last weekend. But almost every single hospital I've been to, they have like these like little tiny metal like gratings at the top, and then they have like panels. You can like get a stepping stool and like knock those panels out, and you have access to all the wiring and all that kind of stuff, the light fixtures and all that kind of stuff. And the roof is like hanging from like these little like metal wires. Not the roof though. The ceiling. The ceiling. Yeah, it's a fake false ceiling. So I wonder if Tatike like jumped into the roof somehow, or like tried to escape the hospital or hide out, so he didn't have to pay a medical bill. I don't know. I'm grasping at straws here at the moment. Or maybe he went into some kind of secret, like, I don't know. Maybe like, okay, like the first guess, the window guess was already incorrect. Or at least as far as we know, it's incorrect. But the roof panel one, possible? Not very likely, though, because, I mean, what happened? Did he, like, somehow climb up there, put the panel back, lay down, and just die immediately, and nobody noticed a stench or a smell? Right? I don't know. What do you think happened? Let me know in the comments down below. At the timestamp, at least. And then, afterwards, we'll see what happens.
And at some point on this day, one of the workers had to climb into the ceiling of one of the floors of this hospital. Now, the space above the ceiling is this tight, cramped space, almost like an attic. It's very big and wide. It's like the whole length of that floor. And really the only people that would ever go into the ceiling are construction workers or other authorized personnel that needed to do work. It's not.
Of course. Now we need to figure out what happened to our Tatike, like why he possibly climbed up there and how he died. We'll have to figure that out.
Not a place that the public would ever go into. But when one of these workers went up into the ceiling, he had a headlamp on and he's kind of looking around. He's looking for what he needs to do up there. And at some point, he turns his head and his light illuminates a person sitting in the corner far away from him, way up against the side in this tiny little attic space. And it would turn out it was Tatike, and he was deceased. The hospital had absolutely no clue how Tatike could have gotten up there. Not only is it obviously not a publicly accessible area, but the actual way to get up into the ceiling, the door that leads up into the ceiling, is very difficult to find. And even if Tatike found this entrance into the ceiling, it would have been nearly impossible for him to actually get into the ceiling. Because again, this guy has serious incisions on his stomach from the surgery he got. He could barely sit up, he couldn't really walk, so the idea of him climbing and pulling himself up into the ceiling just seems impossible. Then there was the very strange autopsy results. Now, the full report has not been made public, but Tatike's family had a consultation with the hospital after the autopsy was complete, and they would go to reporters and talk about what the hospital told them. And apparently, the hospital told the family that Tatike did not die from complications from his surgery, and they heavily insinuated that Tatike did not die from natural causes. Something happened to him, and the hospital had no idea what this something was, and that's what killed him. And the hospital also told the family that Tatike likely was dead before he went up into the ceiling. Meaning someone or something killed Tatike, and then someone or something placed him in the ceiling. Again, this is just from the family going to reporters and talking about their discussion with the hospital. The hospital's only official statement has basically been that they have cooperated with the family and they don't really know what happened to Tatike. Now, of course, this is a very strange story, but it gets even weirder. On May 10th, 2019, so about a year and a half after Tatike was found deceased in the Stellenbosch hospital ceiling, a 53-year-old father of 4 named Sandile Sabia arrived at another hospital in South Africa. It was in a city called Durban, which is considered to be one of the nicest and wealthiest places in South Africa, similar to Stellenbosch. Sandile was a builder, and he had been working on a house when he had fallen and broken his leg. Specifically, he broke his femur bone, the bone that runs from your hip down to your knee, the big single bone in your thigh. So just for reference, if you break your femur, you can't walk. So, with some assistance from friends and family, Sandile hobbled his way into this hospital in Durban, and he began to receive care. 2 days later, on May 17th, Sandile was still in the hospital, still recovering from this broken femur, when his cousin came to visit him. The cousin said Sandile seemed totally normal, and that during this visit, Sandile told the cousin that after the cousin left, Sandile was going to be transported from this hospital to another hospital nearby, where he was going to get an x-ray of his leg, as well as talk to another orthopedic surgeon. But apparently, after this cousin left from this visit, the doctors at the Durban hospital walked into Sandile's room to take him and transport him to this other hospital, and Sandile was not in his room. Now, this hospital in Durban was known for their very tight security, and so right away, their reaction was very different than the Stellenbosch hospital's reaction. This hospital immediately contacted authorities and said, "We are missing a patient," and they began a very public search of their hospital for Sandile. But they couldn't find him. On May 18th, so 6 days after Sandile disappeared, the hospital in Durban began to smell this horrible stench coming from one wing of their hospital. And so hospital workers would track the stench to a janitor's closet, and when they opened it up, they saw this black liquid dripping out of the ceiling, and the liquid was coming from Sandile's decomposing body that was located in the ceiling. Sandile's autopsy would be carried out very quickly. However, the results of that autopsy...
Ooh, wait a minute. Yeah, this type of like ceiling covering construction, whatever you want to call it, because I really don't consider it construction. Anybody, a toddler could do this. I've always hated ceilings like this. Hate them with a fiery passion, because anyway, yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier. But
that was located in the ceiling. Sandil's autopsy would be carried out very quickly. However, the results of that autopsy have never been made public, and Sandil's family has not commented on the results of this autopsy. As of today, all we know is that within a 2-year period, 2 seemingly ordinary South African men, who both could either not walk at all or who could barely walk because of their physical injuries, somehow snuck out of their hospital rooms totally undetected by staff and then wound up dead in the hospital ceiling. Some say the men really did somehow sneak out of their own accord and decided to go into the ceiling, and that's what happened.
I don't know. I really don't know. Like, this sounds more like someone was trying to, like, cover something up. That's what it seems like. I don't know. Maybe maybe an anesthesiologist gave them the wrong dose or something, or they gave them the wrong drugs, or they did the wrong treatment. It's some kind of negligence somewhere that's going on. It's either negligence of oversight or it's negligence of personnel or professional negligence. There's some kind of nefarious negligence going on. There has to be. There has to be. There's no way it's anything else. I can't think of nothing else. Y'all let me know what you think. Let me know what you think.
Others say both men were murdered and then placed into the ceiling, and still others think these 2 cases are the best examples of something called spontaneous teleportation, which is the hypothetical phenomenon where a human suddenly disappears and then almost instantaneously reappears in another location. But for now, there is no official explanation, so those are all just theories. And so it's up to you to decide what you believe.
No. Spontaneous transportation, no. We're not in the SCP universe as far as we know. Speaking of which, I know I'm behind on the SCP stuff. I know. I'm sorry, y'all. I apologize. I'm behind on it. I'll try to get some done today before I do a live stream today. But yeah. We're not in the SCP universe. The old man, isn't coming out of going through the wall, grabbing some poor fool and pulling them into his pocket dimension with dripping black ooze leaked everywhere. No, it's not that. It's something else. Somebody's trying to cover for their negligence. That's a fact. That's a huge, huge fact. And as long as it's allowed to continue, it's a problem. Then again, I would say that South Africa and a lot of places in South Africa are just as, if not more, corrupt than the United States is right now, or has been, right? When you have any great organizations, corruption is inevitable. But yeah, what do y'all think? Let me know in the comments.
So that's going to do it. If you got something out of today's story and you haven't done this already, please put coyote urine in the like button's apple juice. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. We have a podcast called the MrBallen Podcast that puts out brand new podcast exclusive stories on Monday mornings, and on Thursday mornings, we upload remastered audio of our best YouTube videos. Again, it's called the MrBallen Podcast, and it is available exclusively on Amazon Music. Consider donating to our charity called the MrBallen Foundation. It provides support to victims of violent crime as well as their families. Monthly donors to the MrBallen Foundation, one is called MrBallen Shorts, the other is called MrBallen en Espanol. We post near daily content on Facebook, Snapchat, and TikTok. All of those pages are just called MrBallen. If you want to get in touch with me, please follow me on called MrBallen, YouTube channels, the podcast, wherever. Just know that I really appreciate your support, and until next time, that's going to do it. See ya.
All right, there we go, folks. There we go. MrBallen, this hospital has a disturbing secret. Someone said, I don't know what's so addicting about these videos, but it's impossible to stop watching them. True. Very true. It's very much impossible to stop watching. Someone said, I would look at the hospital staff records of both hospitals to see if there is any correlation or overlap of workers. It'll be interesting to know if any of their organs have been removed. Yes. Yeah, that would make yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense. I would not be surprised if that was the case, actually. Where there was like an employee or something in between the two hospitals who worked both. Or if they had organs missing or something. It's definitely some kind of nefarious malpractice and negligence going on. Most certainly. There's no question in my mind that's what's going on. But that being said, what do y'all think? Let me know in the comments down below. All right. Y'all know what time it is. You like me, you like MrBallen. There's a stuff in the description box down below. Comment section, it's where you put things like words and letters, and you do typey typing. There's stuff to click below the video down there. And then, yeah, I'm trying to get to requests and stuff if I can while I'm feeling a little bit better. So I'm trying. And like I said, pat your alcoholism on the back. Pat them on the back for making so many friends during the holidays. And I will see y'all in the next one. Badger out.